Yeah.
But this, you know, when I was looking to all these happenings last year in June in Iran, all the newspapers here, the mass medias have been full of pictures because it was very attractive. You know, you have had totally new impressions of Iranians, especially of Iranian women. Yeah, because our picture, our image about Iranian women is that they're always somehow black scarf or hijab or more covered, and suddenly you saw them really pretty, beautiful young women with scarves, and they were scared of yes, this man and females.
Media manipulation plays a huge role, and people have to be learning about what they're fed, because information never comes as information, you know. The same way I was using the other analogy, I think people have to be careful about using analogy, saying all of the people behaving that way, therefore, like the Israeli government and the U.S. government felt that they should use as an excuse to attack, you know. So that's also something we have to be very careful, because it's not because the Iranian government is bad that we should be supporting Israel and U.S. and their aggression against Iran, you know. And so it gets very complicated because you get caught in the middle of ideology, you know. This is what is very complicated for the world to decipher and digest Iranian issues, because there are all these geopolitical intricacies that confuse people. But let's be clear, you know, Israeli government is bad, Iranian government is bad, and we have to work to support the civilians, the people that are getting to be victimized by aggressions. I mean, it's almost like you're squeezed in two bad extremes, you know. You're like, your internal government is bad and you have the external aggression. I feel so bad for the Iranian people because, you know, it's just like they're right in the middle of these two oppressing powers. So all I can promote is like help civilians, support civilians, create ways that you can like support them to be grassroots activists and change their country on their own, you know, because no other country can bring liberation to a country. This is like something that they use as a propaganda to go to Iraq and Afghanistan. You know, in Afghanistan it's the same. We have more Taliban power. We have more opium getting exported. So it's not even like a questionable. It's statistics, you know. The U.S. have not succeeded in liberating Afghanistan, just like Americans did not liberate Iraqis, you know, and to try to use this tactic to go and justify invading Iran because the Iranian government is bad is also not the way to go.
But what can we do, let's say, as an alternative publicity? Because, you know, the mass media, it was in the mass media, we have all the information if you want. They did really a big, great job, the people there, with all the mobile phones and taking videos in danger. They took out this much of videos and pictures. They did subtitles in English so that we all can understand this. But suddenly, there was Michael Jackson died and it was out of media. And since this time, the regime can work really in peace and without any spotlight to these happenings. They can bring thousands of people to prison, and now they all get their 3, 4, 5 or more years of jail. So what can we do, you know? Because it is not really easy to, or you cannot show pictures of crying families. You cannot name or name dropping of all these people who are going to jail, because this is exactly this what they say in Iran. If you have any connection to abroad, this brings you 2 years more, for example.
I know it's a problem all over the world, you know, because the news cycle is just so like, and one atrocity of yesterday gets totally like covered by the atrocity of today, which will be covered by the atrocity of tomorrow. How do you get this like longevity in people's like a short attention span? And that's what I think is the work of us outside who have the freedom of like, you know, talking and speaking and keep the issues alive, because, you know, you can't cover it for a week or so. It's about long term. And that's what I think we international people should do to kind of support what's going on in Burma. You know, we have thousands of political prisoners, you know. What is happening in Iran, we have thousands of political prisoners. And it's very difficult, because people always say, oh, wow, this is not latest news anymore. But in this meantime, governments take advantage of that. Israel starts killing more Palestinians because, the Gaza flotilla is out of the news cycle, and the Iranian government will just start oppressing people freely because now it's not part of the news cycle. So I think that the whole idea of like one by one, like you write an email, you speak to someone, you write a blog, you take a photo, you speak to another person, you get someone who has, because some people obviously when they say one thing, whoa, reaches millions of people. If I say something, maybe I'll reach one, but it doesn't matter. We all work together. And endurance, at the end of the day, is about perseverance. It's just like, I know we are all impatient, we want like revolution to happen overnight, we want good things to happen overnight, but unfortunately, we have to be very committed and sometimes understand that a tiny little change will take 10 years, and that's just how it is, but perseverance.
A lot of people talked about somehow Twitter revolution or media revolution. So, and with all these YouTube and pictures and videos by mobile phones, how is your interpretation of these new medias and its use in grassroots movements?
All these new technologies are like double-edged sword, and we know quite well. I mean, the issue that Google and Yahoo, Gmail, all these companies that own like these free email systems, they were just selling their technologies to the Iranian government. And, I mentioned in my panel that Facebook, for example, has a page that every time you put a post on Israel, it will go up. It is Israel Facebook page automatically. You see that there are like over 500 million members of Facebook. It's just incredible monitoring system. And at this point, I almost feel like, what? We just have to assume there is no privacy. Everything is open book. There is no way of hiding information. And we just need to navigate and figure out how to make the most, considering that everything is monitored, everything is surveillance, and everything is used in a big fashion by military and government and so forth. There's no way. You're not going to be able to just walk every time you need to talk to someone and knock at the person's door. You do need to use these networks in order to reach a wider audience. But you just have to be very cautious. It'll monitor, and it's all going to be used for other purposes as well, But at this point, I surrender. I have a Facebook page. I give my email out, and I know there is an overload of information coming through. It's very difficult to sift through everything. But the whole thing is about twisting things around. Like even the internet was created by the military, and they never envisioned that it was going to be used for social network and activism, Even Facebook, I don't know what they had in mind. They probably just wanted to get private information to sell to like marketing companies or corporations to sell their products to us. Little they knew we were going to have this very like big network of activists using Facebook, So it's almost about like you have to challenge systems that were created for domination and control and twist things around and use it for activism and progressive action.
Okay, so I have two questions. The one is, when I now have been here in the elevator last days, and we have had, for example, a film about protests in Europe, about demonstrations, and they are somehow similar to carnivals. And if I compare this with these protests in Iran, so the big difference for me is that you really are in danger of your life if you go to the street in Iran, and here it's somehow that you can say it's in a biography, yes, I've been a member of a social movement.
Yeah.
So you have this personal experience that you have been on this ship where people have been killed.
Right.
So do you have this feeling for you personally that this change has changed you somehow, or that it was suddenly serious or more serious?
Activism in each country has a very different connotation. Like I feel that in the US, for example, the idea is like, let people talk. Freedom of speech, no. As long as people are paying taxes and the government can buy weapons, that's all they care, So freedom of speech is available, but there is no way of transforming freedom of speech in change. And as long as we cannot transform into change, the government of the US will allow us to speak as much as we want, In certain countries, you cannot even speak. You are in a police state, like in Tunisia. People were like, afraid of the walls, Or in China, when blogging is like the most dangerous thing you can do, And Iran is the same thing. You're out on the streets, you'll be, thrown in jail. And it's just really, really crazy. But no matter what, no matter the level of repression each country has, people continue and persevere. And it's very sad that history changes when we have all these deaths and martyrs and people who sacrifice their lives. But I don't know how to change the course of history. It seems to me that always something dramatic has to happen in order for people to wake up. I mean, I really wish we didn't have 9 people dead in my boat, but maybe if we didn't have, the world would not be in an uproar. All of a sudden, it changed the course of the conflict. All of a sudden, people were like, what is this? They didn't care when 1,400 people were killed in Gaza during Operation Cast Lead. Western people didn't care when, Lebanese people were getting cluster bombed in 2006, But then when you kill 9 international people and you have boats with all these different nationalities and activists going out in their own countries and talking about the issue, it sparked the movement and it got people more aware, So I really hope we don't have to have all these deaths in Iran. But as you see, like, when Neda died, it became like the girl for the movement. When Rachel Corrie had these like bulldozers, Israeli bulldozers that go over her because she was trying to protect a house from being demolished, a Palestinian house from being demolished, she became like the figure that represents the resistance movement, And it's just very unfortunate. All our great nonviolent leaders have been murdered, and we always have all this assassination of the good people. Like I come from the Congo, the first time they had a democratically elected person, Lumumba, the CIA couldn't take it. They just went and killed the guy, And it's just very unfortunate that we have to have these dramatic historical events in order to shake people. But no matter what, we as the humanitarian aid workers or activists or journalists or media people, we have to stick to nonviolence and try to provoke change without having to resort to violence. Because, at this juncture, it's just too many weapons, it's too much violence, and we are just going to do ourselves in as a human species,
So my last question is exactly this, what you said about Neda is this cover girl, which is meanwhile totally capitalized. Like we have as well this picture of the civil war in Spain with this guardist who was falling, with the rifle. So my question is, how is there a possibility that we can somehow escape of this fascination or somehow aesthetic of dying, terror, violence?
Human species has this thirst for blood. It's really sad. But when you see an accident on in the highway, everybody stops. It's really, really crazy. But maybe it's our animal instinct that just kind of gets fascinated with violence and weapons and destruction. And I just wish we could turn all this like energy into constructing beautiful things and making peace. But it's just how humans are. It's the same thing with media, We just have to accept there is so much media manipulation and nothing is natural. It's all about manipulating and the cognitive manipulation of how people process information and so forth. So we are part of this game, and the cliche says, who wins the media war wins the war. So we as journalists, as filmmakers, as photographers, we need to use this tool for good things. All right, we need to put their agenda and to cause the very things. That's our moral. Thanks.